My son pushed me at the table. "This seat is for my wife's mother. Sit in the corner. Don't bother." I fell to the floor in front of the entire family. The next morning, I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end, and let me know which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled. I had spent 32 years raising my son Michael in our modest home in suburban Ohio. My husband passed when Michael was only 12, and I worked 2 jobs to put him through college. I never remarried. My son was my world, my pride, my purpose. When he introduced me to Jennifer 3 years ago, I welcomed her with open arms. What mother wouldn't want her son to find love? The wedding was beautiful. I helped pay for it, dipping into my retirement savings without hesitation. "Mom, you don't have to do this," Michael had said, but I insisted. Jennifer seemed grateful then, hugging me tightly and calling me the best mother-in-law anyone could ask for. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? The first sign came 6 months after the wedding. Jennifer's mother, Patricia, started appearing at every family gathering. At first, it seemed natural. She was family now too. But then I noticed something strange. Patricia would sit at the head of my dining table during Sunday dinners at my house. My house. My table where I had fed Michael for decades. When I mentioned it casually to Michael, he laughed. "Mom, does it really matter where people sit?" It stung, but I let it go. Then came Christmas. I had hosted Christmas for 30 years. It was tradition. But Jennifer announced they would spend it at Patricia's house instead. "It's closer to downtown, and Patricia has more space," she explained with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Michael nodded along. I spent Christmas alone for the first time in my life, staring at the tree I had decorated for no one. The pattern continued. My birthday passed with a phone call, not a visit. Mother's Day brought flowers delivered by a service, no personal touch. Meanwhile, Patricia's birthday was a lavish restaurant celebration that I learned about through Facebook photos. I wasn't invited. When I asked Michael about it later, he seemed irritated. "Mom, you're being sensitive. We can't do everything." But I wasn't imagining it. Was I? The breaking point came on Thanksgiving. Michael insisted on hosting at his new house, the house I had helped with the down payment. I arrived early, carrying my famous pumpkin pie and homemade stuffing. Jennifer greeted me at the door with a tight smile. "Oh, you brought food? We already have everything planned." She took my dishes, and I never saw them again that night. As guests arrived, I watched Patricia being treated like royalty. She sat in the place of honor, right next to Michael. I was directed to a chair in the corner, near the kitchen door, where I could barely see the main table. Throughout dinner, I sat in my uncomfortable chair, listening to Patricia tell stories about her Michael as if she had raised him. My son laughed at her jokes, squeezed her hand, called her Mom P with genuine affection. Something inside me cracked. After dinner, as I helped clear plates, the only person helping, I noticed, I tried to reclaim some dignity. The dessert was being served, and I moved to sit in an empty chair closer to my son. I just wanted to be near him, to be part of the conversation. That's when it happened. Michael's hand shot out and grabbed my arm. Hard. "What are you doing?" His voice was sharp, cutting through the dinner conversation. Everyone stopped talking. "I just wanted to sit closer." "That seat is for Mom Patricia," he said loudly. "She's going to sit there for dessert." I felt my face burning. "Michael, I'm your mother. He stood up, and for a moment I didn't recognize my son. His face was cold, almost cruel. "You need to go back to your seat in the corner. You're making everyone uncomfortable." I tried to steady myself, gripping the back of the chair. That's when he pushed me. Not hard, not violently, but deliberately. My hip hit the edge of the table, and I lost my balance. I fell. The room spun, And then I was on the floor, my dress hiked up awkwardly, my carefully styled hair in disarray. The silence was deafening. "This seat is for my wife's mother," Michael said, standing over me. "She's the one who's actually here for us. Now sit in the corner and stop making a scene." Jennifer helped me up, her touch perfunctory, her eyes gleaming with something that looked like satisfaction. Patricia said nothing, but I saw her exchange a glance with Jennifer, a look of triumph. I limped back to my corner chair, tears streaming down my face, while the dinner party resumed as if nothing had happened. I left before dessert was served. No one stopped me. I drove home in a daze, my hands shaking so badly I had to pull over twice. In my own bathroom mirror, I saw a purple bruise forming on my hip where I'd hit the table. Evidence. But evidence of what? That my son had pushed his elderly mother to the floor? That he had humiliated me in front of his entire family? The physical pain was nothing compared to the emotional devastation. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay in my bed, the same bed where I had rocked Michael through nightmares, read him stories, comforted him through his father's death, and tried to understand what had happened to my son. When had I become the enemy? When had Patricia replaced me? But then, as dawn broke through my bedroom curtains, something shifted inside me. The grief began to harden into something else. Anger. No, more than anger. Determination. I thought about the past year with clear eyes for the first time. Every holiday redirected to Patricia's house. Every birthday forgotten. Every Sunday dinner where I was sidelined. Jennifer's subtle comments. Patricia knows such wonderful recipes. Patricia has such modern decorating taste. Patricia is so youthful and energetic. And Michael, my Michael, soaking it all in, gradually turning away from the woman who had sacrificed everything for him. This wasn't random. This was deliberate. Calculated. Patricia and Jennifer had been systematically replacing me, erasing 32 years of motherhood, and my son was letting them do it. Or worse, he was helping them. I sat at my kitchen table with my morning coffee, the same table where I had fed Michael breakfast before school for 18 years, and I made a decision. I would not go quietly into the corner they had assigned me. I would not disappear to make room for Patricia's second-hand motherhood. I had given too much, sacrificed too much, loved too much to simply fade away. But what could I do? I was 62 years old, living on a modest pension and Social Security. They were young, successful, united against me. Michael was a corporate attorney. He knew how to argue, how to manipulate, how to win. Jennifer came from money. Patricia had resources I couldn't match. I needed information first. Knowledge was power, my late husband used to say. I opened my laptop and began to research. What were my legal rights as a grandparent? If Jennifer got pregnant, could they cut me out of my grandchild's life entirely? The answers were sobering. In Ohio, grandparents had limited rights. Unless I could prove something, abuse, neglect, something substantial, I had no legal standing to demand access to my son or future grandchildren. Then I started thinking about the money. Over the years, I had given Michael so much. The college tuition, the down payment on his house, $50,000 from my retirement fund, the wedding, the car I had bought him for graduation. Had any of it been documented? Did I have any proof? I spent the entire day going through my files, bank statements, canceled checks, email exchanges, and there it was, years of financial support, all documented, all provable. The down payment on his house was particularly interesting. The bank records showed I had transferred the money as a loan, not a gift. We had discussed it at the time. Michael was supposed to pay me back when his career took off. He never had. I had never pressed him because he was my son. But now? Now that detail mattered. Over the next week, I became a detective in my own life. I went through every text message, every email, every social media post. I created a timeline of the past 3 years, marking every slight, every missed occasion, every time I had been replaced by Patricia. The pattern was undeniable and documented. I also started watching their social media more carefully. Jennifer posted everything online, their dinners, their trips, their daily lives. And there, buried in the comments and photos, I found something interesting. Patricia appeared in their house constantly, not just for dinners but weekday mornings, weeknight evenings, in the background of Jennifer's workout videos, helping with grocery shopping, sitting on their couch during movie nights. She wasn't just visiting, she was living there, or close to it. My first plan began to form. If I was going to fight back, I needed allies. I needed people to see what I was seeing. I needed witnesses to the systematic erasure of a mother. I picked up my phone and called my sister Margaret in Cincinnati. I hadn't told her what happened at Thanksgiving yet. I had been too ashamed, too broken. But now, with my evidence organized and my resolve hardened, I was ready to tell the truth. "Margaret," I said when she answered, "I need your help. Something terrible is happening, and I need you to believe me." Her response was immediate. "I believe you. Tell me everything." And I did. Margaret drove up from Cincinnati 3 days later. She sat at my kitchen table, her face growing darker as she reviewed my timeline, my bank statements, my documentation of 3 years of systematic exclusion. When I showed her the bruise on my hip, still visible and ugly, she swore, something my religious sister rarely did. "This is elder abuse," she said flatly. "You know that, right? What he did at Thanksgiving, pushing you, humiliating you publicly, that's abuse." The word hit me like cold water. Abuse. My son, my Michael, had abused me. Saying it out loud made it real in a way it hadn't been before. "What are you going to do?" Margaret asked. "I'm going to see a lawyer," I said. "About the house loan, and I'm going to document everything officially. I need records that can't be dismissed or ignored." That Monday, I met with attorney Richard Walsh, a family law specialist Margaret had recommended. He was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with kind eyes that reminded me of my late husband. I told him everything, showing him my documentation. He listened without interruption, taking notes. "The loan is enforceable," he said finally. "You have clear documentation that it was intended to be repaid. We can file a demand for repayment." He paused, studying my face. "But Mrs. Morrison, I have to ask, is this really about the money?" "No," I admitted. "It's about making them understand that I won't be erased, that I matter, that you can't just discard people who loved you." He nodded slowly. "Then you should know that filing this demand will detonate your relationship with your son. There's no going back from this." "There's already no going back," I said quietly. He pushed me to the floor. Walsh drafted the letter that afternoon. It was professional, cold, legal. It demanded repayment of the $50,000 loan within 60 days, with interest calculated from the original transfer date. The total came to $58,750. It stated that failure to pay would result in legal action, potentially including a lien on the property. I signed it with a steady hand. The letter was sent by certified mail on Wednesday. Michael signed for it on Friday morning. I could track it online. Then, silence. All day Friday, nothing. Saturday morning, my phone began to ring. I didn't answer. I wanted them to sweat. I wanted them to understand that I wasn't the doormat they had created. By Saturday evening, I had 15 missed calls from Michael, 7 from Jennifer, and 3 from a number I didn't recognize that I suspected was Patricia. Finally, Saturday night, I listened to Michael's voicemails. The progression was fascinating. The first was confused. "Mom, I got this crazy letter from a lawyer. What's going on? Call me back." The second was annoyed. "Mom, this isn't funny. You're being ridiculous. Call me now." The third was angry. You actually hired a lawyer against your own son? What the hell is wrong with you? There was nothing about the push, nothing about Thanksgiving, nothing acknowledging what he had done to me, just outrage that I had dared to fight back. Sunday morning, they showed up at my house. All three of them, Michael, Jennifer, and Patricia. I watched through my window as they got out of Michael's BMW, their faces grim. Patricia was carrying something, a folder. They had come prepared. I let them ring the doorbell 3 times before I opened the door. I didn't invite them in. I just stood there, in my doorway, looking at my son and the 2 women who had stolen him from me. "Mom, what the hell are you doing?" Michael demanded. "A lawyer? Really?" "You pushed me to the floor in front of your entire family," I said calmly. "You told me to sit in the corner like a dog. Did you think there would be no consequences?" Jennifer stepped forward, her voice dripping with false concern. "We're worried about you. This behavior is so unlike you. Have you been feeling confused? Forgetful?" Ah, so that was their angle. Paint me as senile, mentally unstable. Gaslight me into backing down. "I'm perfectly clear-minded," I said. Clear enough to remember that I loaned my son $50,000 for his house. Clear enough to have documentation. Clear enough to know that a loan means repayment. Patricia finally spoke, her voice cold. "You're destroying your relationship with your son over money. Is that really who you are?" I looked at her. This woman who had taken my place, who had poisoned my son against me, who sat at my table and in my chair and in my life like she belonged there. "No," I said softly. "I'm destroying our relationship by demanding basic respect. You did that when you decided I was disposable." I closed the door in their faces. Through the window, I watched them argue on my porch for 10 minutes before they finally left. Michael's face was red with rage. Jennifer was crying theatrical tears. Patricia looked calculating, dangerous. The war had officially begun, and I had fired the first real shot. The next morning, I received an email from Jennifer. Not from Michael, from Jennifer. That told me everything I needed to know about who was really orchestrating this campaign against me. The email was long, carefully worded, and absolutely vicious beneath its veneer of concern. She wrote about how Michael was devastated by my betrayal, how I was tearing the family apart, how Patricia had been nothing but kind to me, and I was jealous and bitter. She ended with a threat disguised as worry. "We're concerned about your mental health. If you continue down this path, we may need to explore options for your well-being, possibly including a competency evaluation." There it was. The nuclear option. They wanted to have me declared incompetent. Take away my autonomy, my rights, possibly even my home. Paint me as a crazy old woman who couldn't manage her own affairs. I forwarded the email to Richard Walsh immediately. He called me within an hour. "This is witness intimidation and possibly elder abuse," he said, his voice tight with anger. "They're threatening to pursue guardianship proceedings to silence you. That's actionable." "What do I do?" I asked, feeling the fear creep in despite my resolve. "You stay the course, and you let me handle the legal threats. I'm going to draft a response that makes it very clear that any attempt to pursue frivolous competency proceedings will be met with a countersuit for harassment and elder abuse. We'll also mention that we're documenting everything, including the physical assault at Thanksgiving." "I didn't report it to the police," I said quietly. "You still can. Ohio has a 6-year statute of limitations for assault, and you have the medical evidence, the bruise. Did you photograph it?" I hadn't, but Margaret had, the day she arrived. She had insisted, and I had been too numb to argue. Walsh's response letter went out that afternoon. It was a legal masterpiece, cold, precise, and absolutely terrifying in its implications. It outlined potential charges: elder abuse, witness intimidation, assault. It attached Margaret's sworn statement about what I had told her and the photographs of my bruise. It made clear that any further threats would result in immediate legal action. That evening, they struck back. Hard. My phone rang. Not Michael this time, but a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, a man's voice introduced himself as Carl Patterson, Michael's senior partner at the law firm. His tone was friendly, almost fatherly. "Mrs. Morrison, I've known Michael for 8 years. He's like family to me. I'm calling as a friend to both of you, trying to prevent this situation from spiraling into something tragic." "I'm listening," I said carefully. "Michael has a bright future here. But this legal dispute with his mother, it's problematic. The firm values family stability. Partners who can't manage their own family affairs raise questions about their judgment." He paused. "If this escalates to actual litigation, it could seriously damage his career, maybe even cost him his partnership track." The message was clear. Back down, or I would destroy my son's career. "Mr. Patterson," I said slowly, "did my son tell you that he physically pushed me to the floor at Thanksgiving dinner? That I have bruises and witnesses?" Silence on the other end. "Did he tell you that his wife threatened to have me declared incompetent to silence me? That they've systematically excluded me from his life to make room for his mother-in-law?" "Mrs. Morrison—" "No," I interrupted. "You called me to threaten my son's career if I don't back down. But what you're actually doing is witness intimidation on behalf of someone who committed elder abuse. I suggest you speak to your firm's ethics counsel before making any more calls like this." I hung up. My hands were shaking. I had just challenged a powerful attorney at a major law firm. I had called their bluff. But had I gone too far? Was I really willing to potentially destroy Michael's career to make my point? Yes, I realized with startling clarity. Yes, I was. Because if I backed down now, I would be teaching him that he could abuse me, discard me, humiliate me, and I would accept it to protect his comfort. What kind of mother would that make me? But the confrontation had exhausted me. The constant vigilance, the fear, the anger, it was taking a toll. That night, I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the phone call, wondering if I had made a terrible mistake. The next morning, Margaret called. "Pack a bag," she said. "You're coming to stay with me for a few days. You need a break, and you need to be somewhere they can't just show up on your doorstep." She was right. I needed distance, space to breathe, time to gather my strength for whatever came next. I left for Cincinnati that afternoon, leaving my phone off, letting the world disappear for 72 hours. Sometimes strategic retreat was the wisest form of warfare. Margaret's house was sanctuary. For 3 days I slept, ate her cooking, and slowly felt my soul unclenching. She didn't push me to talk. She just let me exist without fear, without vigilance, without the constant bracing for the next attack. On the 4th day, I turned my phone back on. 63 notifications. Most were from unknown numbers, clearly Michael, Jennifer, and Patricia trying different phones to reach me. But there were others too. My neighbor Carol had texted, "Are you okay? Michael came by looking for you yesterday, seemed upset." My friend Beth from church, "Heard you're dealing with family stuff. I'm here if you need me." And then, surprisingly, a text from someone I barely knew. Diane, Jennifer's aunt, Patricia's sister. "Can we talk? It's important. I have information you need." I stared at that message for a long time. Was this a trap? Another manipulation? But something in my gut told me to respond. I called her from Margaret's landline, keeping my cell phone off so they couldn't track it. Diane answered on the first ring. "Thank God," she said. "I wasn't sure you'd call. I need to tell you something about my sister and my niece, and you're not going to like it." "I'm listening." "They've done this before," Diane said bluntly. Patricia pulled the exact same thing with her first husband's mother. She moved into their lives, pushed the mother-in-law out, turned her daughter and son-in-law against the older woman. That grandmother died alone 3 years ago. Jennifer never even went to her funeral. My blood ran cold. Why are you telling me this? Because I watched it happen, and I did nothing. I told myself it wasn't my business. But that grandmother was a good woman, just like you. And my sister destroyed her because, honestly, I think Patricia needs to be the center of attention. She needs to be the mother, the important one. She can't share. And Jennifer learned from her. Do you have any proof of this? I asked, thinking like the warrior I had become. Better, I have emails. Jennifer bragged about it to me once, about how they upgraded to a better grandmother. She thought it was funny. I kept the email because even then it made me sick. Would you be willing to share that email with me? And possibly testify if needed? Silence. Then, yes. I'm tired of watching my sister destroy people, and I'm ashamed I didn't stop her before. She emailed me the evidence within an hour. It was dated 2 years ago, just months after Michael and Jennifer's wedding. Jennifer's words were casual, cruel. We're slowly phasing out Michael's mom. She's so needy and old-fashioned. Mom P is so much better. She's fun, she's stylish. She actually enhances our lives instead of draining them. Michael barely notices the switch, LOL. I forwarded it to Richard Walsh with shaking hands. This was the proof I needed. This wasn't accidental drift. This was premeditated emotional abuse. But before Walsh could respond, another message came through on my cell. From an unknown number again. I almost didn't open it. But curiosity won. It was a video message. From Patricia. She was sitting in what looked like Michael's living room, perfectly lit, perfectly composed. Her voice was warm, motherly, concerned. Dear Catherine, we've all been so worried about you. Disappearing like this. Turning off your phone. It's frightening. We understand you're upset about Thanksgiving. Michael knows he overreacted. He's sorry. We all are. Her face shifted, became more intimate, more persuasive. But this lawyer nonsense has to stop. You're destroying Michael's life over a misunderstanding. The money, forget about it. We'll pay you back over time, whatever you want. But please, please stop this legal action. Come home. Come back to your family. We miss you. It was masterfully done. If I hadn't known what I knew, hadn't seen Jennifer's email, hadn't experienced the systematic cruelty, I might have been moved. The old me, the me from before Thanksgiving, would have crumbled. But I wasn't that woman anymore. I didn't respond. I didn't acknowledge the message at all. Let them wonder. Let them worry. Let them feel, for once, what it was like to be ignored and dismissed. Instead, I called Richard Walsh. I have new evidence, I said. And I have a witness willing to testify about their pattern of behavior. Then we move forward, he said. Are you ready for the next phase? I thought about that video, about Patricia's false warmth, about Jennifer's casual cruelty in writing, about my son, who had chosen these women over the mother who raised him. I'm ready, I said. What's the next step? We file for the full loan repayment, and we add a claim for intentional infliction of emotional distress. We go on record, we make this official, and we force them to either settle or face discovery, depositions, and potentially a trial, where all of this becomes public record. Do it, I said without hesitation. Margaret squeezed my hand as I hung up the phone. I'm proud of you, she whispered. For the first time in months, I felt something other than pain. I felt powerful. That evening, Margaret invited her neighbors over, women she'd known for years. She told them I was staying with her, going through family difficulties. These women, strangers to me, rallied around me with a fierceness that brought tears to my eyes. They shared their own stories of toxic family members, of boundaries violated, of abuse disguised as love. "You're doing the right thing," one woman named Rosa said firmly. "Family doesn't mean accepting abuse. It never has." I wasn't alone. I had proof. I had support. I had strength. Let them come. I was ready. I returned home on a Sunday morning, refreshed and resolved. Margaret drove me, insisting on staying the night to make sure I was safe. We pulled into my driveway at 11 a.m., and my stomach dropped. Michael's BMW was parked in front of my house. All three of them were sitting on my porch steps, waiting. They had been waiting, by the looks of it, for some time. Jennifer held a bouquet of flowers. Patricia clutched what looked like a photo album. Michael stood as soon as he saw my car, his face carefully arranged into contrition. "Mom," he called out as I got out of the car. "Please, we need to talk, really talk." Margaret moved to stand beside me, her presence a silent statement of support. "You don't have to do this now," she murmured. "Yes, I do," I said quietly. "Let's get this over with." I unlocked my door and let them in. All of them, including Margaret. We sat in my living room, the same room where Michael had played with his toys as a child, where we had celebrated Christmas mornings, where my husband had taught him to play chess. The ghosts of happier times seemed to watch us with sad eyes. Jennifer spoke first, her voice soft and trembling. "Catherine, I owe you an enormous apology. I've been horrible to you. Thoughtless. I let my mother's excitement about being part of Michael's life overshadow your rightful place. I'm so sorry." It was a beautiful performance. If I hadn't read her email calling me needy and old-fashioned, I might have believed her. Patricia chimed in, opening the photo album. "I brought this to show you. It's pictures of you and Michael through the years. I wanted to remind everyone that you're his mother. Nothing changes that. No one can replace you." She passed the album to me. It was indeed full of photos, my photos, from my own collection. When had they taken these? Had they been in my house without permission? The violation of it made my skin crawl, even as the images broke my heart. Michael as a baby, his first day of school, his college graduation, me standing proud beside him. "We want to start over," Michael said, and I saw tears in his eyes. Real tears. "Mom, I was terrible at Thanksgiving. I was stressed, I was overwhelmed, and I took it out on you. But these past 2 weeks without you, they've been hell. Please, can we just forget the lawyer, forget the money, and be a family again?" For a moment, just a moment, I wavered. This was my son, my baby, crying, begging for forgiveness. Every maternal instinct screamed at me to comfort him, to make it better, to sacrifice myself for his peace. Then I noticed Patricia checking her watch. A quick, furtive glance, like she was timing this conversation. And I understood. This was theater. Scripted. Calculated to hit all my emotional buttons. "What about the repayment?" I asked calmly. Jennifer's face flickered, just for a second. "We'll pay you back, eventually, when we can afford it. But right now, demanding it immediately is causing Michael enormous stress. His firm is questioning his judgment. You're hurting his career over money." "Over $58,000 that I loaned him," I said. "That he agreed to repay. That's not a small amount. That's my retirement, my security." "So your security matters more than your son's future?" Patricia asked, and there it was. The edge in her voice, the coldness creeping in. "My son's future seemed to matter very little when he pushed me to the floor," I replied. Michael's face hardened. "I've apologized for that. Multiple times. What more do you want? You want me to grovel? Fine. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry." Can we move on now? Move on to what? I asked. To me sitting in the corner while Patricia takes my place? To holidays at her house? To being erased from your life while you upgrade to a better grandmother? Jennifer's eyes widened. Just slightly, but enough. She knew I had seen the email. Margaret must have been showing something on her phone, because suddenly Patricia turned pale. You've been talking to Diane, Patricia said flatly. My sister has always been jealous of me. Whatever she told you is lies. She showed me an email, I said, from Jennifer, bragging about phasing me out, about how I'm needy and old-fashioned, and you're so much better. The room went silent. Michael looked at Jennifer, confusion and betrayal crossing his face. You wrote that? Jennifer's mask slipped completely. Her soft, apologetic expression vanished, replaced by cold fury. So what if I did? It's true. You are needy. You are old-fashioned. You suffocate Michael with your expectations and your martyr routine. I sacrificed so much. I worked 2 jobs. I gave you everything. We know. You never let us forget it. Jennifer, Michael started, but Patricia cut him off. No, she's right. Catherine, you've never let Michael live his own life. You've always been there, hovering, making him feel guilty for every choice that doesn't center you. We were trying to give him space to breathe, to be his own man. I stood up slowly. Get out of my house. Mom, Michael began. Get out, I shouted, and I saw him flinch. You came here to manipulate me, to perform your apologies while checking your watch to make sure you hit your marks. You brought my own photos to guilt me. You thought you could make me back down with tears and pretty words. But I see you now, all of you, and you will leave my house immediately. Jennifer stood, her face twisted with rage. Fine. But when you die alone and miserable, remember that you chose this. You chose pride over family. And when Michael and I have children, you will never meet them. Ever. That's the price of your stubbornness. The threat hit like a physical blow. Grandchildren. Cut off from grandchildren who didn't even exist yet. But I didn't crumble. Then that's a price I'll pay, I said quietly. Because I won't teach my grandchildren that it's acceptable to abuse the people who love you. Now get out. They left in a storm of angry words and slammed doors. Michael looked back once, his face a mixture of anger and something that might have been fear. Then he was gone. I collapsed onto my couch, shaking. Margaret wrapped her arms around me. That was terrifying, I whispered. They threatened to keep my grandchildren from me. Only if you let them win, Margaret said fiercely. You stood your ground. You didn't break. And now you know exactly who they are. No more doubts. No more guilt. She was right. The fear I felt was real, but it fed something stronger, a burning determination that they would not destroy me. I would not disappear into the corner they had assigned me. I would fight, and I would win. The court date arrived 6 weeks later. Richard Walsh had recommended mediation first, but they had refused. They wanted to fight. Fine. So did I. The courthouse was an imposing limestone building in downtown Cleveland. Margaret accompanied me, along with Diane, who had flown in from Arizona specifically to testify. I wore my best navy suit, the one I had worn to Michael's law school graduation. The irony wasn't lost on me. Michael, Jennifer, and Patricia arrived with their own lawyer, a sharp-faced woman named Kathleen Morris, who looked like she ate grandmothers for breakfast. They didn't acknowledge me. Patricia whispered something to Michael that made him nod grimly. Judge Helen Rodriguez was a woman in her late 50s, with steel-gray hair and no-nonsense eyes. She had reviewed all the pre-trial documents, including the evidence of the loan, the email from Jennifer, Diane's testimony, and the medical photos of my bruise. This is a civil suit for loan repayment and emotional distress, she began. But I see elements here that concern me deeply. Before we proceed with formal testimony, I want to hear directly from both parties. Mrs. Morrison, you start. I stood, my legs steady despite my racing heart. I told her everything: the loan, the systematic exclusion, Thanksgiving, the push, the bruise, the threats to have me declared incompetent. I spoke calmly, factually, without drama. Let the facts speak for themselves. Kathleen Morris tried to interrupt several times, but Judge Rodriguez silenced her with a look. Mr. Morrison, the judge said when I finished. Your response? Michael stood, and for a moment, he looked like the boy I raised, uncertain, caught. Your Honor, my mother and I had a difficult evening at Thanksgiving. I was stressed. I didn't push her violently. I just guided her back to her seat. The bruise, I didn't know about the bruise. I never meant to hurt her. You guided your 62-year-old mother so hard that she fell to the floor in front of witnesses? Judge Rodriguez asked, her tone ice cold. It wasn't, I didn't mean, he faltered. Jennifer stood up abruptly. Your Honor, if I may, Catherine has been exhibiting signs of mental decline, forgetfulness, paranoia. We've been concerned about her living alone. This lawsuit is evidence of that decline. She's confused about a gift. It was documented as a loan, Walsh interrupted, standing. $50,000, clearly marked as such in bank records. We have the email exchange discussing repayment terms. That email was from 5 years ago, Jennifer shot back. Michael was just out of law school. They discussed many things. It doesn't mean... Mrs. Morrison, Judge Rodriguez said to Jennifer, I'm going to stop you right there. I've read the email your aunt provided to this court, the one where you discussed phasing out your mother-in-law and upgrading to a better grandmother. Would you like to explain that? Jennifer's face went white. She looked at Michael, then at their lawyer, then back at the judge. That was taken out of context. It was a joke. A joke? The judge's voice could have frozen lava. You find elder abuse humorous? It's not elder abuse. Patricia finally spoke, her voice sharp. Catherine is manipulative. She's always used guilt to control Michael. We were trying to help him establish healthy boundaries. Healthy boundaries, the judge repeated slowly. That include physical assault, financial exploitation, because refusing to repay a legitimate loan is exploitation, and conspiracy to have her declared incompetent to silence her legal claims? Kathleen Morris stood quickly. Your Honor, there's no evidence of conspiracy. The email from Mr. Patterson at Michael's law firm, calling to threaten career consequences if Mrs. Morrison pursued her legal rights, was copied to Jennifer Morrison's email address. Walsh said smoothly, pulling out a document. We subpoenaed phone records. Jennifer coordinated that call. That's conspiracy to intimidate a witness. The courtroom went silent. Michael was staring at Jennifer with dawning horror. You did what? I was trying to protect you, Jennifer hissed, by threatening my mother, by getting my boss involved. The crack in their united front was visible, widening by the second. Patricia tried to salvage it. Michael, focus. She's the enemy here. She's trying to destroy us. I'm his mother, I said, my voice ringing through the courtroom. I raised him alone after his father died. I worked 2 jobs to put him through college. I gave him $50,000 for his house because I loved him and wanted him to succeed. And you, I looked at Patricia, you slithered into his life and convinced him I was disposable, that you were better, that I didn't matter. You don't matter, Patricia shouted, and suddenly the mask was completely gone. Her face was twisted with ugly rage. You're a pathetic old woman clinging to a son who's outgrown you. I'm the mother figure in his life now. I'm the one he calls when he needs advice. I'm the one who sits at the head of the table. You're nothing but a... Miss Thornton, that's enough. Judge Rodriguez's gavel cracked like thunder. Sit down, now. Patricia sat, But the damage was done. Everyone in the courtroom had seen it. The viciousness, the cruelty, the truth beneath the performance. Michael was staring at Patricia like he'd never seen her before. Jennifer was crying, but they were tears of rage, not sadness. Judge Rodriguez took off her glasses and looked at the three of them with something like disgust. In my 20 years on the bench, I have rarely seen such a clear case of coordinated elder abuse. Mr. Morrison, you pushed your mother to the floor. Mrs. Jennifer Morrison, you conspired to intimidate her legally and paint her as mentally incompetent. Ms. Thornton, you orchestrated a systematic campaign to replace this woman in her son's life. She put her glasses back on and picked up her gavel. Judgment for the plaintiff. Mr. Morrison, you will repay the full loan amount of $58,750 within 90 days. Additionally, I'm awarding Mrs. Catherine Morrison $25,000 in damages for intentional infliction of emotional distress. I'm also ordering a restraining order. What? Michael jumped to his feet. A restraining order, the judge continued coldly, prohibiting all three defendants from contacting Mrs. Morrison except through legal counsel for the next year. You will also each complete a family counseling program on elder care and respect. This judgment is final. The gavel came down. It was over. Michael stood frozen. Jennifer was sobbing. Patricia looked like she wanted to lunge at me across the courtroom. Their lawyer was already gathering her papers, her face tight with barely concealed anger at her client's spectacular implosion. I stood up, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. Margaret hugged me tight. Diane squeezed my hand. Richard Walsh gave me a satisfied nod. As we left the courtroom, I heard Patricia's voice, shrill and desperate. Michael, we can appeal. We can fight this. But I didn't look back. I walked out of that courthouse with my head high, my dignity intact, and my victory secured. They had tried to erase me. They had failed. The money arrived 37 days later. Not the full 90 days, 37. A cashier's check for $83,750 delivered by courier with no accompanying note. The speed told me everything. Michael's law firm had likely given him an ultimatum: pay it immediately or face partnership consequences. The court case had become public record after all, but the money was only the beginning of their unraveling. Richard Walsh called me 2 weeks after the judgment. You need to hear this, he said, and I could hear the satisfaction in his voice. Michael's firm put him on probation. Carl Patterson, the partner who called to threaten you, he was formally reprimanded by the ethics board. Turns out witness intimidation doesn't play well with the State Bar Association. Michael's partnership track has been delayed indefinitely. I should have felt guilty. A good mother would feel guilty. Instead, I felt vindicated. Actions had consequences. Finally, consequences. The social fallout was even more devastating for them. Diane hadn't stayed silent after the trial. She had told other family members, Jennifer's cousins, Patricia's old friends, about what had happened. The story spread like wildfire through their social circles. The family that had attended that Thanksgiving dinner, they had been subpoenaed for depositions. They had been forced to describe, under oath, watching Michael push me to the floor. 2 of Jennifer's cousins reached out to me with apologies. We should have said something that night, one wrote. We were just so shocked, and then Jennifer acted like nothing happened, and we didn't know what to do. I'm sorry. Patricia's church group, she was very involved in her church, loved to present herself as a pillar of the community, learned about the trial, about her screaming at me in the courthouse, about the email evidence of her systematic campaign to replace me. I didn't have to do anything. The truth simply spread. She was quietly asked to step down from her leadership position in the women's ministry. The official reason was spending more time with family. Everyone knew the real reason. But the cruelest blow, the the one I didn't orchestrate but watched with grim satisfaction, came from Jennifer's workplace. She was a social media manager for an upscale lifestyle brand, her perfect life carefully curated online. When her role in the elder abuse case became known, when screenshots of her upgrading grandmother's email circulated, the brand quietly let her go. They couldn't have someone managing their public image who had publicly, spectacularly demonstrated such cruelty. She tried to spin it as choosing to focus on family, but in her industry, everyone knew. She was toxic now, unemployable. 3 months after the judgment, I received an unexpected visitor. Not Michael. I hadn't seen or heard from him since the courthouse. The restraining order was still in effect, and honestly, I was grateful for the forced silence. But this visitor was someone I hadn't expected. Jennifer's father, Robert. I almost didn't open the door. But something in his posture, slumped, defeated, made me curious. "Mrs. Morrison," he said quietly, "I know I have no right to be here, but I needed to apologize. I've been married to Patricia for 30 years, and I've watched her do this before. To my first wife, actually, my ex-wife's mother. Patricia needed to be the center of everything. Even then, I thought she'd changed, or maybe I just stopped caring." He looked old, tired. When Diane told me everything, not Patricia's version, the real story, I finally saw it clearly. What she did to you, what she taught Jennifer to do. I'm ashamed. I'm filing for divorce. I invited him in. We talked for 2 hours. He told me about Patricia's need for control, her jealousy of other women, her inability to share attention or importance. He told me about his first marriage ending because Patricia had systematically poisoned it, just as she had poisoned Michael against me. "Jennifer learned everything from her mother," he said sadly, "and I enabled it by looking the other way. I'm sorry. I didn't forgive Patricia. I didn't forgive Jennifer. But I accepted Robert's apology because it was genuine and because he was taking action, divorcing Patricia, trying to salvage his relationship with Jennifer by insisting she get therapy." The final piece of their defeat came 6 months after the trial. I learned through Margaret, who heard it through the family grapevine, that Michael and Jennifer were separating. The marriage hadn't survived the truth coming out. Michael had apparently been horrified by the email, by the conspiracy, by seeing his wife's true nature exposed in court. The crack that appeared in the courtroom had become an unbridgeable chasm. Jennifer moved back in with Patricia. 2 bitter women, alone together in Patricia's house, with nothing to show for their machinations but ruined reputations and shattered relationships. Michael moved into an apartment alone. He lost his mother, his marriage, his partnership track, and his illusions all at once. I heard from Carol, my neighbor, that he drove past my house sometimes, late at night, but never stopped, never knocked. The restraining order would expire soon, but the damage was permanent. I had won. Completely. Absolutely. Without compromise. They had tried to erase me, and instead, they erased themselves. Sometimes I wondered if I should feel sorry for them. I didn't. They had made their choices. They had shown me exactly who they were. And when I fought back, when I refused to be erased, they discovered that actions have consequences. I deposited the check, every penny of it, plus the damages. I put it back into my retirement account where it belonged, and I began to rebuild my life, not around my son, not around the role of mother, but around myself. For the first time in 32 years, I was free. A year after the trial, my life looked nothing like I'd expected, and everything like I deserved. I sold my house and bought a small condo in Cincinnati, 2 blocks from Margaret. It had a balcony with morning sun and a view of a park where children played. I watched them with peace, not bitter longing. Margaret and I took a painting class together, something I'd always wanted to try. Turned out I had a gift for capturing emotion in faces. I joined a book club, made friends who knew me as Catherine, not as Michael's mother or the woman who'd been pushed aside. Just Catherine. I volunteered at a senior center, helping elderly people navigate technology. The irony wasn't lost on me. I, who had been painted as senile, teaching 90-year-olds how to video chat with grandchildren. I even dated briefly. A kind widower named George. It reminded me that I was still a woman, still capable of being seen and appreciated as myself. The restraining order expired. Michael never called. I didn't call either. The silence was painful, but clean. Meanwhile, reports filtered back about their lives. Patricia's divorce was brutal. She walked away with far less than expected. She and Jennifer moved into a small apartment in a less desirable neighborhood. Jennifer couldn't find work in her field. The elder abuse case followed her everywhere. She worked retail now. I saw her once behind a cosmetics counter. Our eyes met. Recognition, humiliation, rage. She turned away. Patricia became bitter and isolated, spending her days watching game shows, growing old alone. Exactly what she'd tried to make happen to me. Michael's separation became divorce. His career stalled. He never made partner. He lived alone in a sterile apartment. Robert told me once, "Michael asks about you. He's too ashamed to reach out." "Good," I said. "Shame means he understands." On my 64th birthday, Margaret threw me a party. 20 friends came, people who liked me for me. That night on my balcony, I thought about the frightened woman I'd been 2 years ago. I wasn't her anymore. I had been pushed to the floor, but I had gotten up. Patricia, Jennifer, and Michael had lost everything trying to destroy me. I had lost my son, but gained myself. I knew which trade I preferred. If you're listening to this story, maybe you recognize something in it. Maybe you have someone in your life who's being slowly erased, systematically discarded, pushed to the corner. Or maybe you're the one in the corner right now, wondering if you're crazy, if you're too sensitive, if you should just accept it. Don't. Your dignity is not negotiable. Your right to respect is not conditional on other people's convenience. Family doesn't mean accepting abuse. Love doesn't mean accepting erasure. I learned that fighting back has consequences. You might lose people you love. You might face a courtroom and public judgment. You might have to rebuild your entire life. But you know what the alternative is? Sitting in the corner, invisible, diminished, waiting for crumbs of affection from people who've decided you're disposable. I chose myself. It was the hardest and best decision I ever made. What would you do? Would you fight, or would you fade? I'd love to know your thoughts. Leave me a comment below. And if this story resonated with you, please subscribe. Sometimes we all need to be reminded that we matter. Thank you for listening to my story. May you never have to live it, but if you do, may you find the courage to stand up. You deserve better than the corner.